What's up? What's happening? Welcome here to Lacrosse Now. I am your host, Travis Eldridge. A lot to get to here on the show. We got two terrific guests. First, we're joined by Max Adler, the face-off man for the Chaos. We're talking Chaos this time of year again. It's crazy to think they won only 2 games in the regular season, haven't won back-to-back games all year, but here they are in the semifinals. We'll talk to Max about this matchup with the Archers. Also talking a little bit about the transition from the NLL to the PLL, the first time Max has ever had to do that. First indoor season of his career he's coming off of. So we'll talk some about that as well, that big semifinal against the Archers coming up this weekend. Plus, we're joined by Redwoods head coach Nat St. Laurent. He's also the head coach at Ohio Northern University, and that is one of the big things we want to talk about with him. We will hit on a little Redwoods postseason news after they lost the Archers this past weekend, but more importantly, talk about what he's doing with his Ohio Northern College team to help kind of send a message about the meaning of September 11th. Obviously, the anniversary of September 11th coming up this weekend. Find out what he's doing with his team that's making an impact to make sure that we remember the first responders, all those that gave their lives and dedicated themselves to trying to save people during the attacks on September 11th. So an awesome conversation with Nat St. Laurent. I hope you stay tuned for that. But we're going to start with a couple other things. I'm going to get to some PLL thoughts here in a second. But first, I want to start with something coming in the college game, actually at the recruiting side of things. One big news item coming out this week as McCabe Millen from the McDonough School outside of Baltimore has switched his commitment. He's the #1 recruit in the class of 2023. He's switched his commitment. Originally, he was set to go to Duke. He has flip-flopped that to Virginia. So something to keep an eye on now for some other guys. All these verbal commitments, at least for the next month or so, in this class of 2023, guys that are just beginning their senior years of high school. So we'll see if there are any ripple effects from that. Also coming out of the class of 2024, recruitment that just opened here on September 1st for this current group of high school juniors. #1 recruit in that class, Ryan Dunkel, also verbally committed to Virginia this week. So just a handful of days into him being able to have contact with the coaching staff, he's already set on Virginia. So the best keeps on getting better. Virginia, who's been in the national conversation here, won 2 of the last 3 national championships. Well, they are also going to continue to get stronger. Connor Schellenberger, Matt Moore, guys that were also former #1 overall recruits. So UVA's got a good track record with #1 overall recruits going there. So we'll keep an eye on our recruiting landscape. Hopefully we'll get somebody on here in the next couple of weeks to talk about everything going on recruiting-wise in the college game. It's kind of the hot stove for that as we get ready for fall ball. But we've got PLL semifinals coming off this week. We're coming off the quarterfinals at Gillette Stadium this past weekend. So I've got some PLL headlines coming out of this weekend. And we're going to start with a team that got the job done this past weekend in the quarterfinals, and maybe the quarterfinal that I was most intrigued by, and now gets to take on the top seed, and that's the Water Dogs. And the headline now is, watch out, Whip Snakes. The top team in the league, the Whip Snakes, did not play this weekend in the quarterfinals. The top seed getting the bye to the semis. And I don't know if that's a good thing, because remember, this Whip Snakes team, by the time they will play this weekend on Sunday, will have had 2 full weekends off, 3 total weeks since they've played a game, because there was a week off before the quarterfinals. Everybody else who was a playoff team played in the quarterfinals, and now the Whip Snakes, with all that extra rest, but also time to be away from each other, now has to play this Water Dogs team that may be playing like one of the best teams in the entire league. First off, something to keep in mind with this semifinal coming up after the Whip Snakes beat the Atlas this past weekend, or after the Water Dogs beat the Atlas this past weekend. The Water Dogs are the only team in the league to beat the Whip Snakes this year. They won 11-10 against the Whips back in July. They also lost once by 1 goal earlier in the season. So they split the season series, both 1-goal games. So you would expect more of the same. But you look at what this Water Dogs team did against a very, very talented Atlas team this weekend. Michael Sowers continuing to show us that he is a transcendently good talent on the lacrosse field. I mean, remember the guy that was a senior at Princeton that was tearing up the country? Well, maybe a little bit of the luster got knocked off when he went to Duke because he was on the field with so much other talent. So some of the great things he was doing at Princeton when he broke out, like there was almost no way he could live up to the expectations that when he then went down to Duke, because the amount of attention that was going to be on him from the second he walked on campus because of the beginning of that 2020 year. Well, now he's showing that he is that good now as a professional. 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points in this win over the Atlas. Once again, a really good Atlas team that at times looked like the best team in the league this year, but they've been knocked out thanks to this great performance by the Water Dogs. So Sowers is great. Zach Currier in the midfield is unbelievable. 2 goals, 2 assists, 8 ground balls, and 1 caused turnover. I mean, is there anything this guy doesn't do? On top of all that, one of his goals was good for one of the best highlight goals we saw all weekend in the quarterfinals. I mean, this guy is unbelievable. And then you go on the defensive end. In the midfield, along with Currier, at the long pole position is Ryland Reese, who is a terrific transition threat, along with being good on the defensive end. And Ben Randall, the defenseman at Ohio State, when he first came into the pro game, when he was in Major League Lacrosse, was one of the, stepped on the field as a professional and was immediately one of the best caused turnover guys in the entire pro game. Well, that's continued. Came up with, I believe, 3 caused turnovers this past weekend against Atlas, is continuing to be a caused turnover machine. So you put all that together, and this Water Dogs team can contend with the Whipsnakes. If you're the Whipsnakes, the last thing you want to do is get off to a slow start. I know the Whipsnakes all year long have found ways to win, and so even if they dig themselves into a hole, they're not going to be done. But the last thing you want to do against this Water Dogs team is get off to a slow start, because they have the pieces to make you pay for getting off to a slow start after you've had these weeks off. So keep an eye on the beginning of this game, because despite the fact that the Water Dogs maybe a little bit more inexperienced, they got a bunch of guys that at different levels have gotten it done. I mean, and Zach Currier has gotten it done, I think, at every level he's ever played at, maybe besides the college game when he was at Princeton. So keep an eye on that matchup. I picked the Whipsnakes the beginning of the playoffs to be back in the championship. I am kind of wavering on that now. I really like this Water Dogs team. I'll give you some final picks at the very end of the podcast, but watch out, Whipsnakes, headline number 1. Headline number 2, creating chaos. That's exactly what the team that's named the Chaos is doing once again. I mean, to go 2-8 in the regular season, and then to walk into the quarterfinals at Gillette Stadium and not just win, but to completely dominate a Chrome team that at times, once again, looked like a team that could compete with some of the best teams in the league. I mean, there's a reason they walked in as the 2 seed. They were terrific this year, but Chaos just dominated. Max Adler was great at the faceoff X. He went 10 of 17, 59% with 6 ground balls against not like a bottom of the barrel faceoff guy. I mean, you're talking about one of the better faceoff guys in the league, in Connor Farrell for Chrome, and Max Adler took care of business. We're going to be joined by him in a minute, so we'll talk more about his performance, but that was huge. Josh Byrne goes off for 6 points on 3 goals and 3 assists. But more importantly than all that, and this is what you got to keep an eye on this week against Archers, Blaze Reardon in goal, a guy who had an unbelievable season a year ago, had been up and down this year, kind of, in terms of Blaze standards, maybe mediocre. But he turns it on. And in this game, makes 15 saves and stops 83% of the shots he saw. And that includes like an extra goal or 2 when this thing was out of reach. That, to me, is just astonishing. And you look back at now the last times he's played the Archers. Last game that he played the Archers, he made 19 saves. The Archers still won, but he made 19 saves. So if you're looking at this from a Chaos perspective, you may need Blaze to play this way again, but he's shown to have the ability to do it. So keep an eye on the save numbers and the save percentage numbers for Blaze Reardon, because you look back at the playoffs a year ago, and he was really, really good in the regular season last year too. I think he stopped 60% plus in terms of save percentage in like 6 or 7 games last year during the regular season. But in the playoffs, he went 13 saves against the Archers in the quarterfinals, 17 saves against the Atlas in the semis, and then 15 more saves against the Whips in the championship. So if these numbers keep getting better, if he makes 15 saves this past weekend in the quarters, he makes another 17, 18, 19 saves. He may even have to make 20 if they want to beat this Archers offense. But if he does that, look out for Chaos to possibly make another run back to the championship. We may have another rematch of Chaos Whipsnakes if that's the case. But it leads me to my final PLL headline coming out of the quarterfinals and into the semis, and it's arrows up for the revenge tour. Full disclosure, I picked the Archers to win the championship prior to the start of the playoffs, and this team that played in the quarterfinals may just be the team that finally gets the Archers at least to the championship game. You look at what all of this means for the Archers. First off, is this it for this team? Because we're about to talk to Nat St. Laurent about PLL free agency a little bit later in the podcast, but there could be absolute and total chaos in terms of roster makeup this offseason with the number of players that are going to be out of contracts that will need new contracts and will have the ability to look elsewhere just because of the structure of the contracts and what this new situation is going to look like. So for this current group of Archers that have essentially been together since the beginning with a couple of pieces that have been added in, especially offensively, this might be their last run to try to put this together. Will Manny, Marcus Holman, Tom Schreiber. They added in Grant Ament after that first year as when he came in as a rookie. They've added Connor Fields here in the last couple of years. This team is so good. I mean, you look at what they did, a dominant win over the Redwoods here in the quarterfinals, and they did it with Will Manny not scoring and Grant Ament with only a goal and an assist. I mean, most teams, you take Will Manny and Grant Ament out of that offensive picture, and they're not having a good day, and this team goes on to win 13-8. So this is going to be maybe the biggest game of the Archers' history, considering what's at stake. Like, is this your last chance as a group to put it all together and see if you can and make a run to this championship? And I really, with the Chaos getting through and knocking out the Chrome, I kind of like how things have shaped up for the Archers. Like, this should be a favorable situation for them to find their way into the championship game. Now the question is, can they do it? Keep your eye on both Connor Fields and Marcus Holman. Fields with a huge game in the quarterfinals against the Redwoods, and continues to be, especially when you look at this guy, a guy who was a Tewarton finalist, a guy who demanded number one cover guys even early on in his pro career. With all the different pieces they have on this Archers offense, he's getting sometimes a third or fourth defender, which is just allowing him to dominate and really pick his spots and be able to dodge successfully. So keep an eye on him. And Marcus Holman is having a really, really good year. He was kind of finding his way, I think, the last couple of years. It feels like he is really found his groove and his spot on this offense. And I really would like to keep an eye on them because you know the attention Schreiber and Ament and Will Manny are going to get. So keep an eye on those two as guys to have big games once again. They scored 7 first-quarter goals, by the way, against the Redwoods. I'd like them to have another start like that. This team, Archers, when they get out to hot starts, they win. They find ways to win. When they get off to slow starts, dig themselves into a hole, we've seen a lot of times they come back, but they come up just short. So fast start key against the Chaos, which is going to be difficult because I think Max Adler is going to have the edge at the face-off X. So keep an eye on all those matchups. But I like Archers to find their way through in that game. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch the semifinals coming your way on Sunday from down in Washington, D.C. 2 terrific matchups setting the stage for the championship in Philadelphia a week from Sunday. For more on these PLL semifinal matchups, specifically the matchup between the Chaos and Archers, we have Max Adler, the face-off man for the Chaos. Had a chance to catch up with him earlier today. You can take a listen to that interview now. So we have Max Adler, the face-off man for the Chaos, joining us now. Max, you guys are still playing, so you're feeling good, right? Like this is what you expected all along, despite the fact that you didn't have success in the regular season.
Exactly, just how we planned it out, win 2 games in the regular season and then turn it on for the playoffs. So that's how we drew it up.
But seriously, like, what was it? Was it just like the right day that clicked this past weekend in Gillette? Like, what do you take?
I think it's just our culture in our locker room, and it starts with Andy Towers. It's all about the team. It's no individuals. You're doing anything for the team's success you possibly can, and that's guys that are on our game day roster and guys that aren't on our game day roster. I mean, I'm in constant communication with Tom Kelly, Jerry Ragoney's going over scouts, going over game plans and all that. So it's really our whole team, not just the guys on the game day roster. And it's a culture that we've built of, improving every game, which I think we've done in certain areas, and then making sure we put it all together for the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it all came together, and I look, too, at the face-off X. You win 59% this past weekend against Chrome, and then at goalie in Blaze having the game that he had against them. I feel like those two spots were key to what you guys did last year. Like, what do you feel like you were doing really well in especially those spots that enabled you guys to dominate the way you did?
Yeah, I mean, well, just to hit on Blaze, I think what he's been able to do, he's by far the best player in the world. And I mean, if you're talking about one of the best athletes too. He plays forward in the indoor game and then is one of the best. It's crazy to think about. It's something that I don't really think it's appreciated enough. Just the insanity of doing both at a completely different position is, unlike anything I've seen before to compete at that high of a level at both. So, I mean, I guess it doesn't really surprise me that Blaze was, 80 something, was like in the 90s before they scored a few like garbage goals at the end. So, I mean, that's like, honestly, not surprising. That's like how Blaze is. He's an incredible leader, incredible teammate. And it's just all about, the team and doing whatever it takes to win.
I mean, you mentioned that he wins MVP, and for a goalie to win an MVP award is just like, I mean, you got to be special, and he was special last year. Is that like what this past game felt like? Was it like last year postseason Blaze?
Yeah, I mean, I just think his every game he goes into, the way he prepares, the type of leader he is, none of it surprises me. I mean, the bigger the moment, the better he plays, and he's just everything you'd want in a leader and a teammate and a captain of our team.
So you guys play the Archers this week. Obviously, another potent offense that you guys didn't have success against in the regular season, losing twice to them, though the teams that played the Archers very different, the beginning and the end. What do you see in this matchup?
Yeah, I think it's just about really focusing on us and putting together a full game and taking it, each possession at a time and focusing on and staying in the moment. And I mean, the thing is, we have nothing to lose. Like, we're the 7th seed. We are, we weren't expected to even be here. People are saying we shouldn't even be in the playoffs. So we're playing with house money. We have nothing to lose, and we're the hunters. So we're excited and we're ready to go.
I want to hit on that because, like, down the stretch of the regular season, like, it's you guys and the Cannons in the bottom of the standings, knowing only one team's going to make the playoffs. And it felt like you guys had chances to kind of put the nail in the coffin for the Cannons and say, hey, this is our spot. We're going to take this final thing. But you didn't. What was different from the end of the year where, like, you could have just made things easy for yourselves and then what you did last week?
We just want to make it exciting, get more viewership on the league. So that's why we waited. No, I honestly just think it's, it was tough. We had a lot of guys missing from the NL, and it takes a while to get back into it and get that chemistry back. We didn't have training camp. We didn't have any of that we had last year. And I felt like last year, even towards the end of the season, we started putting it together, where now it's just we're putting it together, but it's the playoffs. So I just think a lot of it's peaking at the right time. And, Andy Towers is the leader of our team, and he really kept everything positive and just making sure that we're continuing to get better and improve on things. And we had specific things we were looking to improve on every game. And the result is, playing the best we can in the playoffs and peaking at the right time, which is hopefully what we're doing and what we'll continue to do.
What do you guys take away from the experience of knowing that you did this all last year? Like, how much more confidence did that even give you going into this past week?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's just, everyone's doing everything they can to help the team, and that's their one goal. It's no one's an individual on our team. It's all about, like, that's how our locker room's built. So it's just how much we love each other and we love playing for each other. We're willing to die for each other. And I think you see that carry over on the field, and it starts with Coach Towers and trickles all the way down through our locker room, guys not on the roster, just as our team culture.
You hit on some of the NLL stuff in terms of transitioning. And for you, this is the first time you've had to do that transition. And not only do you have to do it, but it comes pretty late in the PLL season because you guys in Buffalo make a run all the way to Game 3 of the finals. What has that transition been like for you back to the field game?
Yeah, it's been tough. I mean, you have the mental aspect of losing in the championship and being so close and what that would have meant to the city of Buffalo. So, in one aspect, that really stings, but it's also nice where you're able to just jump right back into it. You don't have to wait a full year to be playing lacrosse again, which is what I'm used to, is win or lose, you have to wait a full year. So, in one way, it's nice to jump back into it, but in the other, it takes, took a toll on our bodies. I mean, you look at like Dane Smith and Josh Byrne, they haven't had a weekend off, I think, since our bye week, just with the Team Canada stuff and the Sixes stuff and all that. So, I mean, it definitely took a toll on our body. And now I think we're all healthy and we're ready to go.
What was your welcome to box lacrosse moment from this past year? Because I know this is really your first foray into playing this box game. What was the welcome to the NLL moment?
I think it was more just like the Bandits guys helping me just get my pads on, not even knowing how to put like my bicep pad on and my rib pads and all that. I didn't even know what those were. So just like them helping me like tape all those pads on before my first game, I think was the welcome to the NLL moment when I'm like, wow, like I don't really know what I'm in for. So that was a good time.
You start holding them up like, where does this one go? Like,
oh, yeah.
I've never seen this before.
I was standing there and people were taping me up. So it was pretty funny.
And I'm assuming you figured out why they have so many pads once you got on the floor.
Oh, yeah. When the first moving pick comes or whatever and you don't see it and you hit a wall, yeah, you realize pretty quick why you need all the pads.
What's the biggest thing, like as you look ahead to your second year for you, hopefully having a chance to play in the indoor game? What is it that you look at as like, okay, like this is what I learned from year one, and these are the couple of things I want to improve or sharpen for the second go around?
Yeah, I think defensively is huge for me, and I'm fortunate to have the best coaches with Chugger and JT and Coach Eric Vino. So I'm surrounded by the best coaches, and it's just really comes with experience. And I'm very confident because they're such incredible coaches and I have such incredible teammates to learn from too, that I'll be able to make the transition to actually helping out and taking some D shifts.
So back to chaos. You mentioned your kind of face-off room, per se, yep, of the guys that you guys have had. And due to some injuries and you being out at the beginning of the year, you've had some different guys take face-offs for you. And I look back at the game in, I think it was, Minnesota, when Jerry Raganey scored that first career goal. What was that moment like for you, from your perspective when you were watching it?
It was electric. I mean, Jerry is just such a great guy and such a great teammate that for him to be grinding in the MLL and the PLL, just always wanting to take reps and just being such an incredible teammate, for him to finally get his moment was awesome. I mean, I was jumping up and down on the couch watching that game, and it was, that moment was really special for me. So it was great. And our locker room and our face-off room is so great because you have Tom Kelly, who I think is one of the best in the game. You have Jerry Raganese, who can absolutely still get it done. And I'm able to kind of pick their brain of each matchup and what I can improve on and what I'm specifically looking for in that matchup. And then we have Coach Towers, who knows the face-off position better than any coach out there. So it's just a great group, and it's just exciting to have knowledgeable people to talk face-offs and to, have specific issues like, all right, this went wrong this game, and this is how we're going to fix it this game. So, it's just a great locker room, and it's helping me a lot and gives me a lot of confidence because even though I'm the one taking the face-off, I mean, I am representing like Jerry and TK and all the work they put in. So it's great. I love it.
Yeah, thinking back on it, it kind of makes me think of I think it was like the Green Bay Packers quarterback room back in the 90s. Like Favre was there, and you got Holmgren, and like the backup was like Doug Peterson, who ended up being a head coach. And like the guys that were just around that group, it just felt like they had success because there were just so many good minds. And that's such a good collaborative effort.
Absolutely. And it's like I take so much and value their opinions so much that it's just so helpful. Like I have Jerry on the sideline. I have TK. We talk every week. So it's just, and I obviously have Coach Towers. So it just gives me a lot of confidence and really helps me perform at my maximum potential.
All right. So I'll leave you with this. Chaos wins this week against the Archers if what happens?
I just think if we continue to play for each other and just every single play not take a shift off and be the hunters. So I think that's what happens. We go and we hunt. We have nothing to lose.
Well, you got one down that people didn't think you were going to get. Maybe you get another one here in the semifinals. Max, we will certainly be watching. We appreciate the time. Good luck this weekend.
Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you later.
So from Max Adler, we now transition to something a little bit different. Obviously, these PLL games being played on September 11th here on Sunday. So you would expect the league to certainly honor those first responders throughout the weekend here down in Washington, D.C. Another person that is honoring those first responders is Redwoods coach Nat St. Laurent, but he's doing it in a little different way. He's doing it with his college team, Ohio Northern, going to be running the stairs of their stadium to honor those who are running up the stairs of the World Trade Centers to try to save people. Those people like Wells Crowther, the former Boston College men's lacrosse player who tragically lost his life that day on September 11th, 2001. I had a chance to catch up with Nat talking about why he does this every year and what the message he's been sending to these college players is throughout running these stairs every year on September 11th. Had a great conversation with him. Take a listen. So we now welcome in Nat St. Laurent, of course, the head coach of the Redwoods, but also the head coach at Ohio Northern University. Nat, we appreciate you taking some time, man. Thanks.
Thanks, man. I'm excited to have some time to be with you guys today.
So we'll talk a little Redwoods in a minute, but I want to talk about the exciting thing that you have done with your college team here over the last several years, and I know you're planning on doing again this weekend. Obviously, it's the anniversary of September 11th coming up this weekend, and you every year have done what? Walk me through what you've helped do with your college team at your stadium there.
Yeah, so every year, we've been running, the equivalent to 110 flights of stairs to honor, the first responders and so many brave men and women that risk their lives to help others get out of those buildings. And, it's such a major event in American history and had a huge impact on our lives and my life. I want to make sure that our players never forget that. And I do a small part, and our program now does a small part to honor those victims and those families so that we never forget. And, hopefully it's something that we can get more teams on board with to do this year.
I remember I was in 7th grade at the time, and I was in math class, and I remember exactly where I was, and I can vividly remember the room. And so for you to talk to kids that for them, it's so different now. The college kids, especially freshmen, they weren't even alive when this happened. What's the message you send to them, especially young kids now that they didn't experience what some of us, and even for me when I was really young, experienced?
Yeah, so we spend a lot of time talking about that, and each year we get further and further away, and to the point where kids on our roster now were not born when that happened. So I really encourage them to call home. We have a moment of silence in the morning. We talk about it. I say it might not impact your life directly, but it has had an impact on your life. You just don't know it yet. And we encourage them to call home, talk to their families. Some of the kids come back to me and say, hey, my parents shared things with me that they never shared before. And coach, thanks for doing this. And so many of the parents will say thank you. And we're not so much doing it for the thank you. We're doing it for the awareness and for them to understand how much of an impact it did have on their lives, even they don't realize it. So it's something that we want to move forward with and never forget, because we also talk about how our country in that moment came together like I've never seen it in my life. And in those moments and everything that we're going through right now with, elections and social injustice and people having such hard feelings and passionate feelings about things going on in our country. For me, it was a moment in our time where everything kind of stood still. And I talked to them about that and how close our country came together and bonded together. And we need more of that currently.
Yeah, that's always will be one of the things I remember. Some of the games and sporting events, when they come back, some of those images still you watch to this day, it gives you chills. It was just such a powerful moment in this country's history.
Yeah, and I think our sport has a special connection. I think,
Sure.
You're right. You can think of, all those moments in the Bronx and the Yankee Stadium and in different sporting events, but to make it even further, more authentic for our players and try to strike a chord and hit home with them, we talk about the connections that it had with our sports, with Wells and Eamon McNee and just so many different athletes and people that we don't even realize that were impacted by it. there's a strong connection there. And I think it's important that our sport, does, the best job we can do to make sure we as a nation never forget that.
You talk about the impact it had on so many people's lives. I mean, if you don't mind me asking, you as a military veteran, how did it impact your life?
It's the reason why I joined. I was in college, and that happened in the fall. And that winter, I went and enlisted and finished the spring semester and the spring season, went right into basic training. I come from a military family in upstate New York. I had a brother who was in the military at that time. And I remember when all that happened, I was away at school and got a phone call from home saying, hey, your brother's been alerted to base. We don't know where he's going, when he's going, but he's going to be away, and, he's going to be on lockdown. So I'll never forget that call. And I felt like way better people than me were serving our country. I got to do something to try to help out in a small way. And it really motivated me it just changed my life. It changed who I was and how I went about things. And, so many different things throughout that day I will personally never forget. But I remember that one phone call with my brother who was called to, he was at Fort Drum. He was stationed there, and they said, okay, something's going to happen. You need to be ready immediately. And, so I went home that weekend hoping to see him. But, they were on lockdown, and, I felt like if he's sacrificing and doing this, then I should do something as well.
Yeah, that's incredible. So it was in part your brother and what you saw, you just felt like you needed to be part of this? I
had to. Growing up where I'm from and being in a military family, being so close to a military base where you're seeing our soldiers go to work every day, they're doing flying exercises over your backyard sometimes. I don't know. This country means the world to me. And, for somebody to do that. And I remember just watching those planes hit those buildings and the pictures, and just reading the newspaper and so many things after, people that just didn't deserve that, families that are impacted forever. Like, I just couldn't stand for it. And, I wanted to do a small part, nothing heroic. I didn't get the opportunities that some of the other people did, but I wanted to serve our country any way that I could.
And I know one of the things you've put out on social media this year is you want to see some other schools try to join in what you guys are doing. And I think the coolest part about it is it's like you're not raising money for something. It's just the awareness for all these kids and the people around their teams to make sure you recognize what people did on that day that was so special. How can teams reach out, get involved, and do what you guys are doing on September 11th? Just hit the stairs?
Hit the stairs. We talked to, I talked, Coach Nads at Towson started doing it. And a couple other people started reaching out, and I just felt like, how great would it be if we could get all of these teams throughout the country doing something, and, everybody could be something different. For us, we come together, usually around 7:30, 8:30 in the morning, and we try to run the stairs because that's roughly in that time frame when the planes departed. Before I have some kind of message for our team. Last year it was, we're all upset about, COVID and opportunities that we were lost, and this is getting taken from us, and we got to do this and we have to do that. And I just kind of remind them, I'm like, some of you guys might not even understand why you're here and why we're doing this, or you even want to. But before we step foot on the first step, I want you to, stop and think about people that went up those stairs at the instant, didn't care who they were trying to save. They didn't necessarily know exactly what was going on, but they knew that something way bigger than them called them to get in that building and help other people. And, I talked to our team about the importance of that. So while we're all struggling and navigating through COVID and school and different things, like, that's nothing, man, not compared to what those brave men and women did, risking their lives. So we talk about that. We have a moment of silence. I encourage them after to call home and, talk about it with their family and their friends. And this day and age, you can get on the internet and social media and just follow the timing of events. There's Twitter handles that you can follow, but the impact that this had, it moved me. It changed my life. It changed your life. It changed all of our lives. And these brave men and women that went up and down 110 flights of stairs just to help strangers, people that they didn't even know, when they could have easily just stepped away and went home and been with their families and been safe. They didn't even think about that. Like, it was the most selfless act I could ever dream of or think of to do. And we need to honor that. And we need to, make sure that that's very special. So there's no blueprint, everybody can do it differently. But I just remind our guys, every time you pick your foot up and put your foot down on a step, just know how meaningful that is to honor the memory of the people that did that and would do it again if they ever could.
Yeah, every September 11th, I watch that story that ESPN produced about Wells Crowther, and every time it hits me because that's what he did. Like he could have done, he went up over and over and over again, knowing more people were there, knowing that any second it could be the end. But he just kept going to save as many people as he can, and that is just such a powerful moment.
It was incredible. Our guys showed up with the American flag. They all had red bandanas. I was moved to tears. I usually run mine alone before them. Just for personal reasons. And when I saw them rolling with the flag and the red bandanas, and they said, "Coach, you want one of these?" I was like, "You're damn right. You're damn right." And to be honest with you, the red bandana is still hanging on my son's dresser to this day. So just he's old enough now, and he understands what that is and what that means to be selfless like Wells and so many other brave men and women. It was it'll move you to tears. And any team that wants to join us, we'd love to have you do it. We'd love to get everybody around the country doing it because we just can't forget how special those people are.
100%. Nat, thanks for what you're doing because it's an important message, and especially I mean it's crazy to think about that these kids are freshmen in college, weren't alive when it happened, but now they can learn thanks to some of the messages you're sending and some of the teaching. So keep doing what you're doing, and I hope more teams get involved, and we can see a bunch of posts on social media on Sunday about teams honoring the legacy of all these first responders. While we have you, there's no good transition here, so why don't we just talk a little PLL while we got you. Obviously, a disappointing season for you guys with the Redwoods. How do you sum up how things ended here in the quarterfinals and what the year was as a whole?
Yeah, I think it was a tough year, with injuries and, just never could get into a flow of things. It was certainly difficult. A long season, guys battled, but, I'm proud of our team. On the outside looking in, we keep hearing about how on paper we're so good and the talent level, but, nobody understands the injuries that we've had to go through. And it's just been nonstop since training camp. And we never really had a full team, on all cylinders. And we were 1-4, battled back to have a great second half. And then, just fell short in the playoff game, to the credit to the Archers. But, it was just it was a tough season. Wasn't certainly the way any of us wanted it to end. But I love the group. I love the opportunity. And, obviously moving forward with free agency on the lurk, there's going to be obviously big changes around the league and pro lacrosse and with the Redwoods.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's I think you hit the nail on the head because, you look at all these rosters, and they're so freaking talented. And you've even seen it before. You've been part of professional lacrosse for a while. I remember looking at those Ohio Machine rosters, and you see Kyle Harrison and Marcus Holman and Tom Schreiber. And you got teams that are struggling to make the championship game. You go, how is that team? But when everybody has all this talent, the distribution of it, it's hard to compete at this level. And sometimes the difference is a couple of guys being a little banged up and not being 100%. And all of a sudden, you lose a couple of games that you probably shouldn't.
Yeah, and that's it. And not to make excuses for us, that there is so much talent. We should find guys who kind of step in. And it's just so hard to get into a rhythm. Winning is extremely hard. And in pro lacrosse, the PLL is emphasizing that even more and more. And, like I said, I'm proud of the group to battle the way that we did. And we're excited to hopefully, get some guys back that we didn't have this season and guys that we lost throughout the season for the future. But yeah, I mean, this league is loaded, and it's one thing that everybody's learning is winning is extremely tough. And going back to the Ohio Machine days, right? It was hard to win, and we had a pretty good team there. So it was certainly a disappointing season overall, but not another locker room I'd want to be a part of.
You mentioned the free agency thing. What's life going to be like for you, kind of head coach, general manager type role throughout this offseason? Do you have a strategy yet?
We're working on it. We've got there's a lot of lacrosse to be played between now and in that point. But we've got a bunch of guys on our team that are in the final year of their contract. So we've got some conversations to have, and we've done a really good job the last couple of years keeping this team together. But we've fallen short quite a bit, so we're going to have to reassess some things. And I love these guys, but some of these guys have decisions they've got to make, and it'll be a stressful time for sure. But at the end of the day, everybody in the league is going to be going through the same thing. A lot of really good lacrosse players out there that are going to be open and available in free agency, and we'll see what we can do moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, that is the thing. You guys have a bunch of free agents, but so does every team in the league. So it's going to be a little chaotic, quite frankly, this offseason, or at least it could be.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an extremely exciting time if you're a fan. I think it's going to be something that we're not used to in field lacrosse and pro lacrosse and the history of it. But we still got, the playoffs to be played out here. I'm not sure when the free agency is going to open up where we can officially start talking to people. But it's an exciting time for pro lacrosse with sixes starting, and then you throw in free agency. I think there's going to be quite a bit of movement, and we're going to do everything we can do to be right in the forefront of it. We've not shied with trades. We've been bold with trades in the past and doing what we got to do to make sure this team is competing for a championship.
So you mentioned the playoffs playing out here. You got the semifinals this weekend. How do you see it playing out, at least this weekend, with the matchups we have, Archers and Chaos and Whips and Water Dogs?
It's going to be interesting, right? There's a lot of questions. The Whip Snakes are extremely well coached. They're veteran laden. They've had 3 weeks off, and the Water Dogs are a very good team that are super well coached, and they're an exciting team to play and watch and compete against. So that one's going to be very interesting to see how that works. They're hot right now. The Whips have been off for 3 weeks, so I know Coach Stagnita and his staff will have those guys ready. And then the other game, the Archers offense is electric. But Blaze Reardon saved like 80-something% last game. It's insane how great that guy is, and their team plays with a boatload of confidence. It's the playoffs, so it's going to be good lacrosse. Wish we would be part of it. We didn't get the job done, and now we're just going to sit back and watch and hopefully get motivated in the off season to make sure that we're back there like we were in 2019 and 2020.
For sure, Nat. Well, congrats on another good year with the Redwoods, and we can't wait to see maybe some videos and stuff from you guys at Ohio Northern running the stairs here on Sunday. I know there'll be a bunch of teams with you, and a lot of people thinking of all those first responders. Thanks for the attention you're bringing to it, and thank you so much for taking some time to chat with it. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for all your help, and I really appreciate you bringing a light to it, and we can never forget.
Thanks, Nat. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
So great to hear from Nat. Obviously a tumultuous offseason for a lot of PLL teams, but we got to get through the semifinals first, and then Nat and company will get together trying to figure out what the Redwoods roster is going to look like next season. And hopefully, hey, if you're a college coach or a player or even just somebody who's out of school, whatever, and you want to run some stairs, I'm sure Nat St. Laurent would be appreciative of that. Maybe share it on social media. Tag Nat there on Twitter. You can find him if you just search Nat St. Laurent on Twitter. Find him, share you running some stairs to obviously honor the first responders on September 11th. I think it would be a really cool gesture, and it's really cool to see what he's doing and the message he's sending to his college players. As for the PLL semifinals, I promised you picks. I picked them at the beginning of the year. My 2 picks for the championship still live, Archers and Whips. So I guess I got to stay with that. Though I really like the Water Dogs in that second semifinal, or I guess it's the first semifinal happening. Water Dogs and Whips is the first one, but I really like the Water Dogs, but I'm going to stick with what I picked at the beginning of the playoffs, and we'll go Archers Whips for the championship next weekend in Philadelphia. I hope you enjoy the semifinals. We will be back here to pack it all up next week here on Lacrosse Now. But for now, I'm Travis Eldridge. We'll see you.